I'm not sure if the Netflix series Untamed that stars Eric Bana and Sam Neill is going to hurt or help tourism at Yosemite, because while the scenery might be beautiful, the show implies there's also a ton of sketchiness going on as well. The investigation of a brutal death in Yosemite's vast wilderness sends National Park Service Special Agent Kyle Turner on a collision course with the dark secrets within the park and in his own past. This is a relatively quick watch, with the series only having 6 episodes that are all between 40 and 50 minutes. The premise, it's fairly straightforward. A person is found dead in Yosemite, and because of the circumstances, a federal agent assigned to the park leads the investigation, which in turn points to a more intricate secret. The scenery for this is beautifully breathtaking. Now, I've visited Yosemite several times, and it truly is a majestic venue, especially when the snowfall has been huge and then the rivers are overflowing, which then create dramatic and spectacular waterfalls. And they're great to see, at any time, but when there's an abundance of water, it's just spellbinding. And then very misty. Within the show, there are some sequences that it was difficult to tell if we were seeing Yosemite or just set pieces with the park footage superimposed behind, because there was a certain fakeness to a few of the visuals. And while there are some establishing shots of Yosemite, the majority of the show, it wasn't shot there. And because once you're in the forest or climbing up rocks, the landscape looks very similar. And I'm sure in a national park, it's probably way more difficult to control the surroundings. But no matter if the entire series was filmed in Yosemite or not, the visuals convey the sheer magnitude and space that the park takes up, building this sense of danger, even dread, that's then mixed with the rugged beauty. And this is important for the plot structure. The story relies on having a hidden and precarious environment which can become its own antagonist within the narrative. The hiding spots and dense foliage add mystique, while the cliffs, ravines, and craggly rocks, they're formidable adversaries against any of the characters. So when there's a chase, a search, even simply just somebody out for a hike, the location puts up hurdles everywhere and does its best to challenge at every opportunity. With Eric Bana in the lead, he gets to be gruff and grumpy, and this outdoorsy guy who has solid reasons to be jaded and sour. Now, he doesn't express many emotions other than anger, sadness, and snark. And this could be off-putting if it weren't for a ranger partner that he kind of commandeers. Lily Santiago plays Ranger Vasquez, a former cop from LA who decided on a change of scenery and then moved to Yosemite. Subtly humorous and gives snark right back to Bana, making them a duo that grew on me quickly. And with Bana's character of Turner, he feels familiar because we've seen many stories focused on a damaged or broken lead who has the chance at redemption through working with an unjaded and optimistic partner. Think about some cynic idealist duos like Russell and Carl from Up, Tommy and Richard from Tommy Boy, April and Andy from Parks and Rec, or even Luther and Justin from Luther. There are a ton of examples that we can use, but the idea is that this character pairing, it's not novel. While it may be commonplace, the duo find excellent timing and then build chemistry that's not sappy or even romantic. It becomes mutually beneficial and trusting. And I like that their dynamic also allows for conflict, where both characters have the opportunity to learn from the other, and we get to see their frustration at knowing the other is correct. Now, strangely, there's a storyline involving Ranger Vasquez's baby daddy, and while it does create some dramatic tension for the character, and then even allows for a tense scene with other characters, the atmosphere that's built through bits of information and then pensive and nervous behaviors make this particular story arc come across as way more important and relevant than it really is. The best way to tell if this arc is superfluous is to ask if it matters if it was removed. The answer is no. The story still progresses with the same amount of intrigue and emotion. And I think it's stronger without it because instead of portraying Vasquez as someone who's fleeing or maybe avoiding tough times, it allows her to be strong through her resolve to raise her son on her own. And while he's a bigger name for the credits, Sam Neill plays a more background part within the show. And I'm not saying he's barely in this, but his involvement, it isn't what I had expected. I like what he brings to the story, especially through portraying an aging ranger who's just trying to finish out his career quietly. And exactly like Bana, he's gruff and grumpy. And I think both of them use the vocal stylings they do to hide their Aussie and Kiwi accents. Now, I would have been fine just letting them speak without the American accent, but maybe that would have removed some of the weathered and warned feelings that the characters exude. There's an emotional undercurrent that weaves through a few of the storylines, and I like what it does to set the mood and tone for the series. It's not happy, In reality, it's really a downer, but the effect this has on characters works to inform their mindsets, behaviors, even future trajectories. And this tie also makes some interactions that come later in the story all the more powerful and pointed, creating a bit of needed oomph as the story begins to slow once it reaches the end. Now, for the mystery angle, I thought it was convoluted and complex enough to establish a few viable suspects. And because the motives weren't made clear at the beginning, it made it even more difficult to identify a perpetrator. That being said, though, there does come a point when one suspect of the story becomes more predictable and obvious. And despite this only being 6 episodes, like I said, I was engaged and curious about the answers to the mysteries that were being raised. Now, I do believe that the storytelling and the progression, they're unevenly conveyed. When the focus is on the investigation of the death, the story feels guided, purposeful. But when the plot veers off to delve into side characters or socio-economic arcs, this is when it becomes distracted, somewhat aimless. The story does make its way around again and then continues with the intrigue, but in those lulls, the show falters in maintaining its tension. And this becomes even more noticeable by the end. The last 2 episodes feel hurried and even a little sparse. Everything comes together rather quickly and easily. There's still a few mysterious elements that get revealed, but most of what had been building, it's resolved in the penultimate episode. And the way the last portion of the plot falls in place makes me wonder if there's this chunk of story that's missing that could fill an additional episode, making the mystery a little more robust and then the reveal more earned. Strangely, there's an action sequence that seems out of place for the show. For the majority of the storytelling, the series is somber, while still containing urgency. But then there's this uproarious action sequence. The cause of the scene, it does make sense within the arc, but it's a noticeable shift in tone where we've gone from modern Western mystery to cop action drama for only a blip, and then we return to the regularly scheduled storytelling style. So overall, Untamed provides a decent mystery while wowing through magnificent wilderness backdrops. Eric Bana plays the grumpy and damaged agent well, but the character is strengthened through the performance of Lily Santiago, who deftly balances with charming wit. The plot progression, while uneven and convoluted, does maintain some urgent tension despite rushing through elements that equate to unnecessary conveniences. The melancholy of the arc contrasts nicely with the setting, building an atmosphere that is inviting and dangerous. There is no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and then a bunch of violence. I give Untamed 3.5 out of 5 couches. Okay, so have you watched any decent mysteries lately? I'm in the mood for something that's going to stump me or make my brain hurt. Let me know if you have any suggestions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.